Rebel Walk pregame report. I'm Dalen Flowers. So good to see you guys. I know I'm not in Lexington. Had to come back home for a few days, handle some things as well. But I'm still getting this pregame report out to you guys. Welcome to the third weekend of college football. So good to be back in that atmosphere. Just got done my morning walk. Look, it's gonna be a fun one. Ole Miss versus Kentucky in Lexington at 2:30 p.m. Central. Obviously, all the talk is about the game last year. Kentucky storms into Oxford, ruins the party for this 2024 Ole Miss football team, and it kind of separates the deviation of, does Ole Miss make the playoffs last year and do they not? And this is a big game. Obviously, from the fan perspective, there's revenge on the mind of Ole Miss fans, but I think it's important for the Ole Miss players and coaches not to play into that. Do what you know to do. Players trust the call, do your job, and everything will be all right if you're Ole Miss. I think one of the big keys that stood out to me last year was time of possession. Kentucky held the ball for 39 minutes in last year's game compared to Ole Miss's 20. So you'll see that this year. Kentucky's rushing game looked a lot better than the passing game last week against Toledo. Does the Ole Miss defense get off the field on third downs? Do they stop the run effectively against Dante Dowdle? That's going to be the key figures for Ole Miss defense. And as well, do they continue the great pass defense that they showed against Ted Hurst and Georgia State last weekend? On the offensive side of the ball, it's going to be a tale of two tapes. Mark Stoops seemed to coach the game of his life last year in Oxford with their only SEC win coming against Ole Miss in Oxford. And Lane Kiffin and Mark Stoops have been going at this for a very long time, going back to Lane Kiffin's Fresno State days. Lane Kiffin is 2-1 against Kentucky since being at Oxford. And, it's funny that these three games that he's played, that he's coached against Kentucky, last year, 3-point loss, 2022, a 3-point win, and 2020, a 1-point overtime win. All three of those games separated by 7 total points. So it's going to be a fun one. You look at the Ole Miss roster and you look at the Kentucky roster, even last year, you think Ole Miss will win, but you don't know. In SEC on the road, a first-year quarterback, starting quarterback, it's going to be a gridiron game. I think it's going to be a little bit of a low-scoring game. You're going to see some mistakes from both teams, but it's going to be a fun one. From the Ole Miss offensive side of perspective, how does the offensive line get better? Bryson Sanders talked about it in the pressers this week. It felt like they didn't even win the game because of the mistakes they made, especially on the interior part of the offensive line. How do they get better? How do they go through walkthroughs this week? How do they watch film? How do they learn from their mistakes? And as well, build just a little bit more chemistry and cohesion within the line. There's a lot of injuries. There's a lot of new faces. There's some young guys. There's new position guys on that offensive line. Does a week of practice after Georgia State help them? And we'll see that this weekend. It's going to be important. Getting Keywan Lacey involved again is going to be huge to open up the pass game for Trey Wallace, Daquan Wright, and Caleb Odom, and Deshaun Tribble and Kalen for these guys as well. So it's going to be huge for the run game to get going. The offensive line has to deliver for Ole Miss. The Kentucky pass game didn't look too effective last weekend.